What does Mental Health Day mean to you?
I think it's an overall awareness and a moment for everybody to go. It's an important factor. It's not an issue. It's a factor. I think if everybody's honest with themselves, it's something that affects us all across many different avenues in very varied ways. But the most important thing to me regarding that is that it starts a conversation about it, and there's an overall awareness, not looking at it like it's an issue.
What steps do you take to stay on top of your mental health?
Self-reflection's been a really big thing that I've had to implement in my life to aid better mental health. There's been sort of like podcasts and things that I've listened to as a result of hearing things on a radio with a guy called Justin Warman, who's an ex-footballer, and talks about using the conversation about mental health and being referred to as mental fitness, and taking just as much as you would go to the gym to flex or stay fit, it's important to flex your mental health. And it's through that sort of awareness where I've sort of had to go, okay, cool, I need to sit down each week and reflect internally to maintain that.
Yeah. How has your mental health been impacted, especially during like a really hard time like this, like COVID?
It's been challenging, but in a positive way. It's brought a few things to the surface that I didn't necessarily give much credence to or acknowledge. So by being at home more, being in a confined space, I've found it has triggered certain things subconsciously which I might not have necessarily acknowledged before. And through that, that's prompted a lot of self-reflection, and I've realised that there's been stuff going on in the background for me for a lot longer than I was probably even aware of.
Yeah.
So, you know, I comes from both sides of my family. Both my parents have had various challenges with mental health, especially in sort of negative connotations. And I'm somebody who's really just always just got on with getting on, and that's not really openly suppressing things, but it internally has.
Yeah.
So, yeah, especially of late, it's prompted a lot of self-reflection and really allowed me to look at that stuff in more detail and acknowledge it and start to work through it.
So what would you say to others that may be struggling with their mental health?
Talk. It's not an easy thing. I'm somebody who just you can't shut up, but sometimes it does also take a little bit to crack through that. And I think there's this massive stigma around it that it's a negative thing. It's really not. Just this using the fitness thing again. You know, just like a runner might pull a muscle, just like, you know, like a weightlifter's gonna, you know, strain one day. That's part of their gig. It's part of life. Mental health is not something that's given enough credence just in your general day-to-day life as something to maintain. It's always that person might have a mental health issue, or this is a mental health struggle. You know, do you and take the time to reflect and input value on yourself. I think that's a really important thing in self-reflection, which is not easy. You know, there's many facets of mental health, but I think it starts with a conversation, and it's really important to have that conversation, even if it doesn't lead into a massive cracking the egg open and you know, because that's a long journey. I think it's have a voice and have a soft place to fall, have somebody you can go to and just talk about everyday life. It might not even be about your struggles or your journeys or your whatever. It's just important to interact, to process that.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. And Liam and I discussed it yesterday as well, is I think that especially around mental health, a lot of people might feel embarrassed or that no one wants to listen, but they might always be the person that goes, oh, I would listen if somebody else wanted to talk to me, but then they're not going the other way.
Absolutely. I think in some time, people would make somebody who's unaware of it or uneducated could assume that it's a selfish thing. But I feel that it's a very selfless thing.
Yeah.
I'm speaking for myself. I'm somebody that very, very rarely makes time for myself. And I'm always concerned about, contributing to others' success and how other people are feeling. And I think that's like a really noble thing that a lot of people have, but intrinsically what happens is we neglect ourselves and we don't take that time to maintain ourselves.
So what have you learned throughout your own journey with mental health?
It comes back down to self-reflection, to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
My journey's been a roller coaster, as it has been for many people, and it's not necessarily in negative context, but it's something that does fluctuate, and I'm consistently learning, which sounds so cliche, but it's cliche because it's true. I've had to learn the hard lesson of you're enough. Sometimes you should just leave stuff, or what you're doing is good enough, and listening to others and suppressing that little voice in the back of it that causes you to second guess yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a really challenging thing, and it's not easy. But that's one of the amazing things about the structure we have within the business, is that you can not only just take and talk to your manager or your direct report about life, but I think we've got a really intrinsic caring nature for everybody. It is that family mentality of, family that you can stand to be in the same room for more than 5 minutes. It's I think one of the really strong points about our business is that transparency of let's talk.